Welcome back to All Texas Football. Welcome to a live edition of the Winning Drive. I'm Jeff Houston, and for Rod Babers, Rod B will be here shortly, but I'm sitting along with lifetime Longhorn Marcus Myers. Marcus, how you doing?
I'm doing well, sir.
And our coach, Bob Shipley. Coach, 2 days until kickoff. Are you fired up?
Oh, man, are you kidding?
2 days.
Ready.
Guys, when we think about two, let's think about the number two at Texas real quick. Got Eric Metcalf, Jerry Gray, Sergio Kendall, and prayers up to Sergio as he continues his fight with cancer. Best number two, favorite number two, guys, of all the Longhorn greats that have worn that jersey number.
Ooh.
One of my favorites, Montrell Flowers.
Marcus, he had the kidney deal and had to retire. It was real unfortunate, but people forget when he came out of Skyline in 90, Montrell was 98, elite level get from Mac Brown and company when he was coming out of Skyline.
Trell could move. Trell could pick him up and put him down.
Yeah, I love Sergio, but I got to say, I'm back. I grew up in the 70s, so I got to say Jerry Gray, he was on a different level back then. He was very dominant defensive back. So
absolutely. The guy that's near and dear to my heart, Fozzie Whitaker. I was a Fozzie Whitaker fan.
No doubt. Big time Fozzie.
I'm a big Fozzie fan. Absolutely. All right, everybody. Super Chats, jump to the front of the line. Go ahead and get your questions in. Yes, 2 days until kickoff. That is one more day until kickoff. Then Ryan Day has wins over Michigan in his career as a head coach. So, Buckeye fans, hope you're doing well tonight. Yeah, we're talking about the game. We're taking all your questions. No, I will not talk about Micah Parsons because I finally got my blood pressure to go back down. So we're just not. We're doing good stuff here on the chat. Marcus, I'll start with you. Texas getting ready to go to the Horseshoe. 2005 was a night game. This is an 11 a.m. game. I contend that it's probably not going to make much of a difference in the atmosphere because that fan base is so used to having 11 a.m. kickoffs. Bobby made a great point earlier this week. Probably going to make a difference in how let's say lubed up the crowd is, how much they've had a chance to partake. But Marcus, that is everybody I talked to that 2005 team that was there that played in the game says it's unlike anything that you can experience as a player in terms of a road environment.
Yeah, it was really something else for sure, Jeff. And it's interesting. I got here a little earlier today, kind of like Bobby. I flew in this afternoon to Columbus, so I'm here in my hotel room. But I wanted to kind of relive it a little bit or see if I could kind of recreate elements of it. And so I kind of drove through campus, and it's starting to kind of buzz. You could see them setting up game day and stuff. And I mean, it's one of those deals when you walk in. It's not all that different from A&M when it's pretty, a pretty steep, stands. If you remember that, Coach, it's they get that thing rocking in there, man. So it's absolutely one of those things that's in our favor. That's an earlier game, but it's still going to be something that the boys going to have to come to play.
Coach Shipley, you've done this for a long time at a number of stops, and Texas has the longest active road true winning streak in the country in terms of true road games won. When you've had really good teams, doesn't matter what level, but you've been around teams that were really good at playing on the road. Was there something they all had in common?
Well, yeah, they played good at home too. In other words, they were consistent, and that's what I love about this team. That's what I love about Sark and the staff, the way they approach things and the way they prepared this team, to be on the road. Because, and I think Arch's comment earlier this week in the press conference, about. There's not a target on us. We got a red dot on them. So it's kind of like, we're the aggressor here. We're coming into town and we got a red dot on you. That's a great way to put it. I mean, I can't. That guy just continues to amaze me with his wisdom and with his maturity. Now we need to see it on the field, of course, but I feel confident that we will. Not that he's not going to make mistakes. But I just like the level of maturity of this team, of this coaching staff. I love the comments that Sark said. It reminds me, Marcus, back when you remember when Mac kind of let BY kind of be loose and started playing music in the pregame that wasn't, country music and stuff. And I just remember watching Vince just dancing in the end zone before. I mean, he would just – everybody was loose. Everybody – I mean, it just wasn't – you didn't feel that pressure around your neck like, oh my gosh, it's such a big game. It's no, we're here to party, have a good time. We're gonna ball out, and that's what I see this team being. I see a Vince Young type atmosphere on this football team, because when it's ready to kick off, I think the guys will be ready to play. And I love that approach that Sark and the team apparently has taken. A lot of great leadership on this football team.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that, Coach. So, Marcus, I'll go there next with you. VY was at our Houston stop, the OTF Third and Longhorn tour last week. And by the way, Austin, Houston, Coach, I know you were at the Dallas stop. All three stops were tremendous and love the support. Everybody's fired up for Longhorn football. But at the Houston stop, VY was asked, hey, what are the similarities you see between this Texas team and the 05 team? And he mentioned the talent, but he said, man, the camaraderie. And the fact that this group is together and they're connected and they're about playing for each other. Marcus, I know that takes a long time for that stuff to cultivate, but man, when you get a real special culture, real special chemistry, that's something that's really, really hard to find.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can see it throughout the offseason. You see the different clips of the guys together. And one of the things that, I know, Coach, you'll probably even appreciate is it's not just position groups, kind of siloed off, right? You'll see some DBs with some linemen. You'll see some, linebackers with some wide receivers. It's not really a thing where it's just who's in their position group that they hang out with. And you build a different type of bond that way. I was listening to where Craig Way was talking with Coach Sark and Jamal the other day. And Jamal was kind of talking about how back in the summers, we were doing our 7-on-7. And at that time, Texas State used to drive up to Austin. So we would play them a lot in the summers. And that's where we really kind of cut our teeth. So these guys are doing their version of that all off season, all in the summer, then all through camp. They've been having to bang on one another all, every single day. Right. So you get to a point where you're ready to just cut loose. And you can really sense that these guys have a quiet confidence about themselves, that they're, anxious to get out there and compete, but they're going to have some fun while they're doing it. Right. I mean, at the end of the day, certainly, they're getting paid these days and we didn't have that. And obviously it's a multi-billion-dollar sport, but at the root of it, it's still a game and you can't have fun with it. It's going to be really hard to achieve things at a high level. And that's another thing that I see these guys doing really well.
Hey, Marcus, I want to ask you, excuse me, Jeff, I want to ask you, do you remember, was there a defining moment that you remember when that all started coming together for you guys? I mean, to me, it was almost like Matt gave them the key and they took the chains off of themselves, and just what can you take us through what that was like? Do you remember that swing in the culture and the attitude of the team? What was that like?
Yeah, I think honestly, probably to some degree, and I certainly don't want to put these kind of expectations on these guys, right? But it's not all that different than, when we were coming off of the Michigan win. It was a big win for us, but we stubbed our toe earlier in that season, and we knew that we had kind of left some meat on the bone. And so it was this anxiousness to get back to work that summer and really just, kind of dial it in. And so, of course, everybody's heard about VY writing on the, on the board in the locker room, but that's it happened and the whole team showed up. I know we've had guys like Casey stuttered on, and I mean the linemen were out there getting work, the D linemen were out there getting work. Like it was a whole team bought in kind of thing. So I see these guys doing much of the same, and it's cool that you see it being passed along from one class to the next. And it was the same thing. Now I know we got my man Rob back in here with us. When I came in as a freshman, those were the guys that we were learning from. So I think that's how you ultimately develop your culture, is you kind of learn from some of those older guys, and you just go out there and let it hang.
Rod is back. I'm going to turn it over to our lockdown corner here on Texas Football. Before I do that, though, I'm going to thank our first sponsor for this edition of the Winning Drive. That is our friends at Hays City Store. There are very few restaurants that once you go to them, you immediately know, man, there's just something special about that place. And Hays City Store, trust me, is definitely one of those places. It is scratch-made Texas comfort food. They've got their famous truck stop enchiladas, the award-winning chicken fried steak, homemade desserts. Just get the key lime pie. You'll thank me later. All of it is absolutely delicious. And again, it's all from scratch. They've got live music six nights a week, 50 beer taps, ice cold long necks, tasty margaritas, 11 TVs alone in their ice house. It's perfect for game day, and they have brunch on Sundays from 10 to 3. Hays City Store is dog friendly, and they have a tree net for the kids. So grab your entire crew and bring them on down to Hays City Store. For more information, check out their website at HaysCityStoreTX.com. Hays City Store, it is uniquely Texas and definitely one of my favorite spots in the greater Austin area. Gentlemen, I'll be watching, listening. Rod, I will throw it to you. Coach Marcus, hook 'em. Everybody have a great night. And everybody, if you're going to Columbus, be safe and take care of yourself at the game. Marcus, be safe in those stands, my friend.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you, Jeff.
Hey, thanks, Jeff. Appreciate you, brother. Thank you guys for getting things started without me. I appreciate that. Good to see you, Marcus. Good to see you, Coach. Good to see everybody in the chat. Throw out your questions, comments, as many of them as you can. We'll try to address as many of them as we can. Super chats always jump to the front of the line so you can interrupt the show at any time. I do want to talk about some of the things that Sark got into at his Zoom press conference today. It's something that you guys were just talking about, Marcus, about playing loose. And that 05 team and how confident and loose you guys were. I wonder if you could my little girl's in there, so just a shout out. I wonder if you could pull up, Matthew, that clip from Sark talking about how his guys are loose and his guys are confident right now, because I think ultimately that's something that not only Marcus could give us a little bit more insight on, but I think ultimately that Longhorn fans are feeling real good that Sark wants his team to be loose and confident, because that's reminding me of that 05 team is a loose and confident team.
My big thing is it's about routine. And once you find your routine and your rhythm on game day, that allows you to have a little bit more freedom and a little bit more loose. When there's unknowns, that's when the uncertainty creeps in and you're wondering what's next. And so, but I also, talk to those guys a lot about follow the leaders. They know. Right? Anthony Hill knows, Arch knows, DeAndre Moore knows, Ethan Burke knows. And the list could go on and on and on of guys who have been in big games and body language and demeanor and things of that nature. But again, I think I love the idea of being loose on game day. There's a sense that you definitely you have to have the right mental intensity and the right mental focus. But we should have instilled enough belief in them that they're more than capable to perform. Whether that's through the schemes, whether that's through ability, whether that's through specific players doing specific things, that they should have a lot of belief and confidence in knowing that we've got the right pieces in place to go perform at a high level.
Coach, you've coached a lot of really good teams, championship level. How do you want your team, that you want them loose and confident? How do you like to see your team before a big game?
Yeah, there's no doubt. There's no doubt. I love that. And really, it's not something that a coach can do. A coach cannot create the culture. It has to be player driven, and that's what I love about what Mac Brown did back in, what was it, 03, 04. Mark is probably right when you got there. He kind of let Vince be develop the culture of the team, I guess, in terms of just being loose and being confident. And every team I've ever coached has played for championships has been that way. The camaraderie of the team, there wasn't any, the coaches got along, the players got along, everybody had a common goal. You didn't have to go in and give some, fire spitting pregame talk. In fact, I tell the story about when we, were playing a huge game one time against our rival, and I had this big speech ready, and they called me to come in there, and the guys have already given their own pep talk and went out on the field, getting ready to run on the field. And I'm like, and we kicked their butts. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess my talks are very overrated, But when you have a group of guys like that who take it upon themselves to be ready for the game and get ready for the game and prepare themselves physically, but also mentally and emotionally, and it makes such a big difference. And that's so obvious when you look at this team and you listen to them in the press conference, you watch the way they play, you watch their body language, all the things that you can, nonverbal communication from these guys shows me that this is that type of team that plays for each other. They love each other. They love the university. They believe in their coaches. And that's a big part of the battle. And as I've said many times, it's kind of like tackling. Tackling is, you got to have good form, but it's about 80 or 90% want to, and blocking's the same way. You have to have some pretty good technique, but a lot of it is just, wanting to and believing in that guy next to you. And so I feel really good about this game. I'm not saying we're going to go in and run over anybody. I'm just saying that I feel like this team has the ingredients and the culture to be very special.
Yeah, Marcus, one of the things I envy, I envied you guys on that 05 title team was you guys did play loose, man. I feel like at times, and I was a part of some great teams, I felt like we tightened up. And I say I mean myself on that too, in some of them big games, them Texas OU games, the Big 12 title game against Colorado, Tech in 02, just big games. And I felt like we played tight. And I felt like the adversity, which you would face inevitably for a championship team, it didn't bring out the best in us, and we weren't confident overcoming that adversity. You played on a team that was totally confident in those moments and never doubted yourself, and I feel like we doubted ourselves at times, and that's why I think underachieved as a group and as a unit. They're gonna see that adversity come Saturday, ain't no doubt, Marcus.
Yeah. Well, and I think you make a good point, Rob, but you also got to realize, right? Like there was a build to that, right? I mean, the 05 team we were on, but we came in 02. We lost the Holiday Bowl to Washington State. We lost a home game to Arkansas when we didn't really know Matt Jones could run like Matt Jones could run, and so you got to kind of take some lumps along the way. And I think when it finally got to be truly our time, it was like if we're gonna go out and do this, we should do it our way. And we should feel good about what we're doing. I think that clip that you had Matt play, Rod, was spot on when Coach Sark was talking about. He told the younger guys, follow the leaders. He didn't say listen to your coaches, and obviously they're going to do that, right, when it comes to their alignment and assignment and all of that. But it's just indicative of it's a player-driven team, and I know you hear people say that, but you only hear that when it's within spaces that it's really true. And I mean, you got back-to-back, semifinal CFP appearances, and I think they're really, knocking on that door and just, ready to kind of kick it in. So the best way you can do that is just be really solid in your assignment, confident in your abilities, and then again, just go out there and have fun like you were a kid, And at the end of the day, it's a game of, it's a fight every single play, and your job is to beat the man across from you. Beat the man across from you and do what is within the bounds of the scheme and within the bounds of what you're asked to do. As long as you're not trying to go outside of yourself and do anything, supernatural, I think these guys will be just fine because they have plenty of talent, to the left and the right of them, front and behind them. You're on mute, brother. You're on mute.
My bad. I apologize about that, guys. My apologies. Hit the super chats real quick here while we got some time. I see them lining up. Thank you, guys. How about Buddy, Pal, Chief Big Guy? Said SEC refs per SEC official X page. I got no problem with SEC. Is SEC ref? Who's reffing this game? Do we know? Is it SEC refs? Do we know that for sure?
No,
I got to do some research. I don't even know who's reffing the game. I really don't even pay attention to it. I know some people keep up with who the officials are for these big games. I have no idea. I haven't done the research. Buddy Pal, Chief Big Guy.
Well, Buddy Pal, Chief Big Guy says it's on the official Twitter X page. So I would be shocked. If I was Ohio State, I would not be happy about that. But what I've experienced is in my career, when you have what looks like a home official, then SEC, then it's almost like it's a curse, because they want to show everybody they're not being one-sided, and so they call more stuff against. I always felt that way, especially in high school ball when we had our home crew officiating. It seemed like, golly, we couldn't ever catch a break because they didn't want the other team to think, or the other fans to think that they were, calling one-sided. So it's kind of like when I coached my kids, I was always harder on my own kids than I was anybody else. And it seems like that when you get your home chapter officials like the SEC, they're going to be harder on you than they are anybody else because they don't want to be accused of cheating.
Yes,
so I don't like this. Personally, I don't like it. If it's SEC refs, I don't like it.
Yeah, should they bring in like a neutral power conference team, official team to do that? Like Big 12, not Big 12, ACC or something?
Yeah, no, we don't want no. Well, I'll take that.
We don't want Big 12.
Before I take Big 12. Promise you that. You know what I'm talking about, Marcus.
Yes, sir. Yeah, we'll pass on the Big 12 refs.
Yeah, that's true. Good point. And they got a vendetta anyway. So yeah, ACC refs at least or something like that. I'm with you. I think the Big Ten would be upset about that. All right, Chris with the super chat here. Chris Haywood says, with Arch under center more, doesn't that allow a big running back to get a bit of a head of steam? Seems likely bigger backs like Baxter benefit from this. What are your thoughts, Coach?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know that it's going to make any difference in the game, but yeah, I think so. Marcus can probably answer to that more, because when Marcus was playing, the quarterback was under center more. And then, finally Vince got in the shotgun, and it does, but keep the running back from getting a bit of steam. I just don't know that's big a difference. What do you think, Marcus?
Yeah, I don't think it'll be a huge difference, right? If anything, it might be incremental, but these guys train so much and rep it so much, whether it's RPO, true shotgun, whatever it is that they're doing. If anything, it'll just be a different look maybe for the defense. A lot of times these guys aren't used to seeing that as much, or certainly not from, most Texas teams in the most recent years. So, it could be a slight advantage to that end, but, I don't think it'll make a ton of difference for CJ and Trey.
Yes, because I know Sark gets in the pistol when he wants to run some of their power concepts. He likes a pistol, which is just it's basically a compromise between the shotgun and under center. And that allows you to get a little bit of a better head of steam, or at least get going downhill. I do think you'll see Arch under center a little bit more. I don't know how much it'll help, the downhill running game. I think it'll help it a little bit. Like I said, I don't know how you quantify that. I do think it'll help the play action pass.
No doubt.
When you turn your back to the defense, I think it'll sell the play action pass more.
Yeah.
And I think so. Just from a defender standpoint, you see that back turned on the quarterback, and you just don't see that in college a lot. You just don't. You don't even see it. You don't see it as much in the pros as you used to. So I think that'll help really with the deception-based passing game that Sark has a lot of.
I wouldn't even be shocked, Rod, if you get to a point in the game where you see the guy, the defensive, unit have been overly aggressive, and we see a little bootleg out of Arch. And, then even while he's on the fly, it gets a run pass option if it's, short yardage or even closer to the goal line. So, to that end, yeah, absolutely. In that play action, I think it makes a difference.
Yeah.
Good point.
All right. Thanks for the question, Chris. We appreciate that. That was a good question. All right. This one is a super chat from, I believe it's Hua. I apologize if I mispronounced it. Hua Hen Golfer says, hey, Rod, off topic. Coach Aquino was on Longhorn Weekly. He was never still. Have you ever seen him not moving? He's my age. I love a 30-minute nap. Yeah, Coach. Coach, obviously Shipley can attest to this, and so can Marcus. He's got an energy level. Like I said, he was a younger man when he was coaching me. I've seen him recently, and I expected him to look like he was slowing down a little bit. That was not the case. He was still as loud as every guy's and as energetic as I've ever seen him. So I don't know where he gets it from, because I'm 45 and life is kicking my butt. So I don't know what Coach Aquino gets it from. Coach Shipley, you know some secret that he has. I don't know. Somebody drinks.
No, I don't know, but I know, Rod. I remember what you told me when you went and watched practice was that he's not throwing the ball like he used to. That's the only thing I've heard is slowing down.
Yeah, he's not throwing all the drills. He still does like some of the main stuff, and everybody, the whole entire secondary gets together. But he used to do the individual drills and everything. Now you got the individual coaches and Kenoto Hudson and all those guys doing that kind of stuff. So he's slowing down, I guess, in that aspect. But he is, like I said, he's an Energizer Bunny, man. I admire the man. I gotta ask him what he's eating for breakfast. What's in that coffee he's drinking or whatever it is.
I think he's working a little smarter, not harder these days. When I went out there in the spring, I was talking to him for a second just to, say, hey, since he was back around. And then, they blew the whistle to go to, a different period. And so I'm like, all right, coach, I'll let you go. And he was like, Marcus, you see all these guys out here? And he was pointing to like all the staff, right? Like the staff he's not used to having. And like you were saying, Ron, a lot of them are younger. He was like, we'll be fine. We'll be fine.
Yeah. He's basically like, I don't got to work as hard. This is the easiest coaching job he's ever done, because he's got, somebody coaching corners, somebody coaching nickels. They got how many assistants to the assistants they got out there, coach? They got all those guys. So this is probably as much, you're right, Mark. This is probably as much support as he's ever had as a coach. So
hey, but what a great role model for those younger coaches.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If this old man's bringing it, I need to step it up a little bit because he brings it every day from the time he wakes up till he goes home. What a great role model for those guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a great point, Coach. Yeah, you can't feel tired around Coach Akita because I don't know where he gets those reserves of energy from. All right, good stuff there. Appreciate that super chat. Very kind of you. Justin with the super chat here says, how do y'all think Sark keeps the guys from being too hyped for the game? How hard is it to keep the balance in this game? That's why we got Coach here. That's a great question for a coach. What do you do to? I mean.
Yeah, I think Sark has addressed that. He just says, be who you are, and do what you do all the time. I mean, it doesn't. I think these guys have worked so hard that, going against an opponent, as you've said before, Rod, you hope it's like, I know you going against, some of the guys, some of the receivers you went against in college. You're like, man, you get in a game and it's like, man, practice was harder than this sometimes, because iron sharpens iron. But I think he's done a great job. I mean, look at the big games that he's won and the road games that he's won, and he just be yourself and don't let the game be bigger than it is. It's a game, and you go out there and just do what you've been coached to do, and do it with a lot of enthusiasm and passion. And there's going to be ups, there's going to be downs, there's going to be times where you're going to have to overcome adversity, and that's okay. I think he's done a great job of it in the past, and I think he's gotten better every year at getting the team to play at a constant level, regardless of who their opponent is.
Well, Coach, you mentioned earlier too, the advantage of, when a home team is playing at night, right? It gives their fans some time to get riled up. The flip side of that works the same way for the players. It's an early start. They're pretty accustomed to, playing. They're not sitting around all day. They're not super antsy, right? So you kind of get up, you eat your breakfast, kind of go through walkthrough, and then you're on the bus to the stadium. So they'll have a lot less time to have to sit and think before, they can really go out there and rip it. So,
hey, I want to ask you guys, both you guys, when you're on a road game and you hear 11 o'clock kickoff as opposed to 7:30 kickoff, what goes through your mind?
Get back home early.
Is that right, Rod? You don't want to sit around that hotel all day?
I like the early games because I just don't like sitting around waiting for the game. I just feel like for me, I'm anxious all day long. I got butterflies all day long. I couldn't sleep anyway the night before. You try to get sleep, but it's you don't get deep into the rim the day before the game really. So I just like that it's more of a business trip when it's an early game. Feels like more of a business trip. When you wait around all day, yeah, you're waiting for the prime time, but man, that's you get mentally and emotionally caught up in other games too. You know what I mean? You start sitting around watching other games, and I don't want to get mentally caught up. And in fact, Major used to talk about that. Major would tell the guys, like the running backs, he would tell them, I don't want y'all sitting around watching games. Y'all get too emotionally invested. He said that's too much emotional capital you got to spend. That's emotional energy that you're using on stuff that ain't going to matter. He said, so he didn't even like his guys sitting around watching games. And I kind of feel that. If you're all day long, I mean, watching a football game, hey, that's some ups and some downs, especially if you know guys.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
You're going to play that team later on that season, and you feel yourself getting caught up in the game. He's like, nah, don't do that. Don't do that. I kind of agree with Major on that one, actually.
And it's like you said, right? Like a lot of the guys too, and especially if it's you're watching on a conference game, like these are your homeboys. You went to school with some of them. You were on the recruiting trail with some of them. Might have even, played youth league ball with them. So it's like you have a different level of investment. So yeah, that's a good point. I never really thought of it that way, but it plays out like that on the longer waits.
Yep.
Man, I tell you this, we played BYU in 2013, and it was like an 8 o'clock game, Pacific Coast time. Then we had a 2 or 2.5 hour rain delay before the game started. I mean, it just, and you have meetings during the day, but you've already had meetings all week and you've had meetings the day before. What else can you meet on? And the coach, you just call meetings just so you won't be sitting around, getting yucky feeling of laying around all day,
Mm-hmm.
And so you have meetings just to get them up and get them out of bed and, your cover stuff you've already covered. Then you get to the stadium and it's a 2-hour rain delay. And
brutal.
and then I drove home that morning as the sun was coming up. That was not fun. And BYU kicked their butt. So yeah, that wasn't fun. But I know I always liked that 11 o'clock because I knew we weren't going to be sitting around that hotel all day long. Get it, take care of business, and get home. Be fresh on Sunday, a little fresher than you would be.
Yeah. CB says, I'm having traumatic.
CB, I'm telling you, I'm not even going to say that quarterback's name. They told me don't ever say it again.
Somebody typed it in the chat.
I'm not going to say his name, but he broke all the BYU rushing records that night because we couldn't stop this own read.
I was on the sideline for that one, Coach. I was on the sideline for that one. I remember that one. I remember that talk that Mac Brown went and had with Manny Diaz after that. Oh, man.
He basically said goodbye.
Yeah.
Brought in Greg Robinson the next week.
Yeah.
We're in DC after that game.
Yeah, that was a tough game, man. That was hard. It was hard to stomach for a lot of Longhorn fans. All right, before we dive back into some more questions, thank you guys for the questions in the super chats. Let's thank another one of our sponsors for tonight's program. Thank our friends over at Von Lane. We appreciate Von Lane and their ongoing support and sponsorship of On Texas football, especially the winning drive. Now, folks, it's always a bit of a toss-up and a bit of a hassle trying to get to all the major cities in Texas, trying to get to Houston, Dallas, Fort Worth, San Antonio. And, whether you're dealing with the airport stress or the airport chaos, hoping your flight isn't delayed, that's always a hassle. Even if you try to drive yourself, that can be a bit of a hassle, dealing with road rage and the traffic jams and burning an entire day of productivity. Well, there's a third option, and it's the best option, folks. We call it Von Lane, and it is a great way to travel regionally, here locally. You arrive at a luxury hotel terminal, no TSA lines, no long-term parking lots, just a seamless boarding experience that takes minutes, not hours. You settle into one of just 22 oversized first-class plush leather seats with a 140-degree recline, leg rest, and a cabin attendant serving complimentary snacks, beverages, and on select trips, a full meal. If you need to relax, it's pretty simple. Just sit back and enjoy the ride. But if you want to stay productive, there's high-speed Wi-Fi and power at every seat. Fall travel is booking fast, so reserve your spot now for October trips to Texas versus OU in Dallas, F1 and ACL in Austin, or college football weekends in Nashville, Dallas, Fort Worth, and Houston. Von Lane connects Austin, Dallas, Houston, Fort Worth, San Antonio, Nashville, Atlanta, Memphis, and now Knoxville, as well as the Woodlands and Plano. Visit vonlane.com, VONLANE.com, and use the code OTF25 to save $20 on your first ride with Von Lane. That's Von Lane Elevated Regional Bus Transportation. Thank you very much to our friends at Von Lane. And also, they were a big hit with the third Longhorn crew and also the OTF crew who took the Von Lane on our Texas tour stops. So thanks to all you guys for helping us build that Texas tour up to a great event. And also thanks to our friends over at Von Lane for providing the transportation for our Texas tour. All right. You know what? Real quick, it's something that we were just talking about that I thought was interesting from Sark's media availability. We'll get back to some of the questions here in a second. But when Sark was talking about Arch, and the advice that he gave Arch, I thought it was interesting that he said on his pregame prep, he said, I quote, I told him, I think the biggest thing is him staying true to his routine. I know the thing he does when he arrives to the stadium, the routes he throws when he first gets out there for warm-ups, what he puts on, how he goes through warm-ups, his demeanor, his body language. I think being true to himself is the best thing that he can do. So that's what I anticipate him being, true to himself. Is that the advice you want? Like, even in that circumstance, biggest game potentially in the biggest season open in history of college football, go through the same routine. Were you able to do that, Marcus? Even because you played in big games, big stages, different settings and circumstances. Obviously, national championship game. Is it easy just to stay with the same routine every time? Or does that get disrupted based on kind of the magnitude of the game sometimes and the events, but before the game and preceding it?
Yeah, I don't think it ever really gets interrupted, Rod. Like, I think if you just, you keep the main thing, right? You just do what you've done always. It's funny. I always like seeing the clips of like NFL quarterbacks doing their different routines. And sometimes it seems a little out the box, but whatever works for you, works for you. So I love the fact that, Sark is really encouraging Arch to just do just that, right? When you come in the stadium, sure, you're going to look around a little bit, but that's usually just when you're walking in. And then by the time you've changed, it hadn't filled up yet. So you're really in there just kind of getting in and doing your regular warm-up routine. And especially for a quarterback, they have, some very specific things that, they're going to do. So I think if all the guys just stick to what they know, they'll be just fine. You never really want to get outside of your norm. You want to really keep it as normal as possible. Like Coach said, you treat it like a business trip, because that's really what it is, right? You're there to do a job, to, make sure that you're preparing yourself the best you can so you can give your team all you got. So, yeah, it was never that big of a challenge. Now, the only time it ever got a little tricky is, there was a handful of places you would go that their locker rooms had some interesting setups. I remember going to Kansas one year, and they had taken all the dividers off the stalls, right? And so that got a little interesting, because some of the guys needed to do what they needed to do, and you didn't have any privacy. So that was really just, and you're getting ready and that kind of thing. And then Texas Tech, always had that cramped locker room where, the guys are, walking above you. But once you're out on the field, it's like, it's 100 yards of grass. And so it's time to get to it.
Yeah. Something else I also like, Coach, that Sark brought up when he asked him about the freshman class. He said he's taking all of them, taking a whole damn freshman class with him. I got to figure like I said, I wonder what was the case for the Michigan game and then the Bama game before that. Seems like maybe that's part of the secret sauce, is that these youngsters get, they get exposed to these big matchups, big road matchups early, even as a freshman when they're not necessarily playing, but they get to witness it. I like that. How common is that, Coach? Big game like that, big road game, first. Big road
it's not that common, but I will say that once you get into the conference, they limit the number of players that can travel. Preseason, there's if there's a limit, it's raised. It's not the same conference. They limit your travel squad. But I think it's a brilliant idea. And just like that ESPN.com article that you shared with us, Rod, it was very interesting. Those younger guys seeing these older guys, and that article talking about how Arch was made. His whole life has been built for this moment, for this. He's been trained by the best, the first family of football, really, especially quarterbacks. He was built for this moment. And for the younger guys to see the way that he handles himself in his really first start of significance. He started a couple of games, but this is his first big start. And for the freshman to see the way he handles himself, see the way he's loose, see the way that he's just as being himself, it's going to be a great teaching tool for those younger players. I mean, it's going to be invaluable. I'm so glad Sark's doing that. And I think it just, again, shows the wisdom and the foresight that he has. And those players love him for it. I mean, he's such a popular coach because he does what's best for the guys to help them get ready for the moment when it's their time to be called on the big stage.
Yep. That article you were talking about, it was interesting. I mean, it was like, I think it was like the 5 stories that reveal why he's ready for this big moment versus Ohio State. One of the excerpts from that article, though, and Jerry Hamilton tweeted this out too. And Longhorn fans, they're in too good of a mood to be bitter about something that happened way, way back in the past, like pre-Mac Brown right now. But here's the excerpt from the article. I don't know if you got a chance to see it, guys, but apparently Peyton Manning had a little interest in Texas at one point, and it faded quickly because of the lack of interest on Texas' part. Basically, they didn't reciprocate the interest. Here's the excerpt. I'll read it here. It says, before his senior year, Peyton asked Archie to drive him to schools he wanted to see on unofficial visits. Thank you very much, Matthew. It says they gave Texas another look and set it up with Coach Makovic. When the pair got to Austin, Archie said Makovic was nowhere to be found. Instead, they met with offensive coordinator Gene Dalquist, who didn't even know they were coming. Peyton asked Dalquist who else the Longhorns were recruiting and asked if they could watch some film. So the Texas OC, Archie and Peyton, watched high school film of other QBs Texas was recruiting at the time. Peyton, all right, always kind of worried about where he stands. Peyton said, Coach, how do I stack up? Archie recalled the quote the coach said, he said, "You're definitely in our top 12."
You got to remember, though, this was before Texas even had a real recruiting coordinator.
Wow.
You know, this is before Texas had the staff that they have now. But, I mean, come on. Maybe you don't really know who Mark I'm old enough to – I watched Archie Manning play. You know, I remember him playing. He was a big deal, you know, and, you know, a former All-Pro, NFL, All-Star, Hall of Famer, whatever, coming in with his son, and you don't even know he's coming.
Man.
What we have here is a failure to communicate, as Major Payne would say.
Oh, I'd never heard that story before.
That's a blow right there.
It's kind of what's interesting though is it also kind of gives you further insight into the Manning family and their process, right? Like they don't hold grudges, you know, like that happened. There's families literally that have experienced things like that, and they'll write a program off completely forever, you know. So then you had Eli come along. I remember hearing Bo talk the other day. I didn't realize Bo and Eli were on a visit together. So,
yeah, Mac recruited Eli. Mac was doing his work.
Yeah. So it's like, you know, each time that they had one come around, they always were considering Texas, and it was what was going to be in the best interest of their son. So, but yeah, could you imagine that happening today?
No, it ain't going to happen today.
It's not going to happen. Yeah.
I know. I saw Mike Adams tweeted, at least quote tweeted that story. Was like, man, my numbers would have been outrageous. The football.
Well, yeah, not only him, but Sloan and everybody else too.
Yeah, exactly. Syracuse said, wasn't Eli considering Texas before Sims committed? Yeah, I believe it's around that same time. Mac was basically recruiting both of them. And I don't know, you know, why the Eli one didn't work out, but Mac was taking care of business. Man, that was a Manning available. Mac was like, no, we need to be in the running there. So there you go. Great story there from the ESPN article. I encourage you to go check it out if you do have some time. It's just about the Manning family and really how everything's kind of built to this crescendo of Arch taking over as the starting quarterback in Texas versus Ohio State. All right, let's get back to some questions here, and then we'll dive into some more Texas, Ohio State, of course. I want to pick Coach's brain and Marcus's brain a little bit about some of their keys to this big matchup. But how about this one from Bobby? He says, Marcus played in Robinson's over cover 3, Chiswick's Tampa 2, and a brief attempt to recreate the Desert Swarm. What does he think of PK's usual cover 3 look, trying to marry to Akina's man coverage? That's good.
That's a really good question.
Good question, Bobby.
Yeah, it's like, you know, whoever it was earlier was talking about how Coach Akina couldn't sit still when they saw him on Longhorn Weekly. And he was talking about how no matter what coverage he called, or I think, you know, DCs would typically ask him, what's your favorite coverage? Or, you know, what do you like to see? And a version of his answer, and it wasn't verbatim or anything, but it had something to do with the pass rush, right? Like if you can get me a guy that can get home, then, you know, whatever I draw up back here, I can make sure my guys can hold it. So, you know, I think whatever those two are in the lab cooking up off season, I think it, you know, to be a fly on the wall for any of those conversations would be incredible. I think, you know, whatever it is that they decide to do to, you know, take care of the different threats that Ohio State's offense, kind of presents is going to be, you know, what's needed for the moment. And I know for sure, and Rod, you can attest to this, those guys will be prepared. And it'll just be a matter of them going out there and executing. And again, I think it's great that you have leaders out there. Michael Tack, that, you know, we've talked about, you know, time and time again, there's been points in which he wasn't even allowed to communicate. So, you know, taking those coverage looks in practice and then moving them to the field in the game, you know, be incumbent on the players to just, you know, do what they've been repped to do. But I don't have any doubts whatsoever about, you know, what some of those coverages might look like. I think they'll be pretty exotic at times, you know, and we've talked a lot about the front being moved around to, you know, kind of confuse, you know, their young quarterback. So I'm really looking forward to that chess match. It'll be interesting to see.
I think the really cool thing about this staff is Sark does the same thing on offense. He brings in guys that will bring in different ideas, different concepts, different experiences. And PK does the same thing. Look at the difference. And you called this, Rod, when he came on staff. When Johnny Nansen came in, we saw a difference in our defense.
Yeah.
We saw his experience and his his wisdom and his thoughts coming out and made us a better defense. And so it appears to be to me that there's no egos involved. And that's, we talked about Jimbo Fisher. That was the thing that got him in trouble at A&M is he wouldn't get ideas from other people. He seemed to just be stuck in the same offense that he won the national championship with Florida State, and it got stale. The defense caught up to that. And so what I love about PK and Sark is that they bring guys on their staff and they listen to them. And when you have a guy like Dwayne Akina come in with experience, and not only just experience, but successful experience, I think you marry those together. And I'm not sure exactly what it's going to look like, Rod. You have a better idea than anybody since you were a secondary player and you played for Coach Akina, and you saw, and in fact, you called it in advance, Johnny Nanson's impact on this defense. So I think whatever the final result is going to be, they will marry their concepts together and come up with an effective defense, especially in the secondary. Do you agree, Rod?
No question, Coach. And you're right. That's why, PK's defenses continues to evolve and get better, because he brings in a coach and admittedly, Sark said, we're open to new ideas that can help that defense evolve and that defense become more modernized. So I think the coverage, I do think they're going to play more man coverage throughout over the next couple of years. I'm not saying it's going to be predominantly a man coverage unit, but I do think, there'll be probably maybe a third potentially of their coverages may end up being a man coverages when they're all said and done. They're playing a lot of single high coverages now because that's one single deep safety. That's more of the Johnny Nansen influence. And I think Coach Akina is going to be big on that too from his time there at Arizona. But when they play Ohio State, they're going to play a lot of two highs, a lot of two high shells, keep those Ohio State receivers in front of them and keep a top over the defense so they don't give up any explosive plays. It worked wonderfully last year. And they held Jeremiah Smith to his worst production and worst output in any game in 2024 for him. So I think that's what you'll get early on. But throughout the season, I think you'll end up playing more man-to-man, match quarters, match thirds. That'll be predominantly like the coverages. I think that'll be probably the three main coverages you see from the secondary in 2025. Yep. All right. Thank you, Bobby. That was a good question, man. Good stuff. MJF said, I haven't heard the R word used publicly, but is Sark using revenge for the playoff loss in the locker room? How far does that get a player after kickoff? That is good. What about your thoughts on that, Marcus? The revenge factor. The revenge factor, it to me, it motivates.
Yeah.
I've actually been motivated by the revenge factor. We lost to Oklahoma in 2000, got whipped by them when they on their way to winning a national title. And most of that offseason was our mentality was we got to be better than Oklahoma. They're the defending national title champion, and they came off just giving us an Old Testament style butt whipping. So revenge was on our mind most of the offseason with Oklahoma as, kind of the focus of that energy. And I thought it worked for us. We didn't win the damn game like we should have, so maybe it didn't work. But in terms of the motivation to get you as a player to, inspired in the offseason in those summer months where you ain't got nothing going on, I think that's when the revenge factor works the most. By the time you get close to kickoff, that's just ball. We're in ball time now. Ain't no revenge factor right now.
Was it what's his name? DJ talked about it in one of his press, one of the player availabilities. He said something to the effect of, first stop on the revenge tour kind of thing. Yeah. But I think we've talked about this before. Like, this was the last team they lost to. This was just like a handful of months ago in this same calendar year. So, it's on their minds. I know, back Coach Brown used to do stuff, week of, he'd have the team's, fight song playing in the locker room nonstop. And so you wanted to get in and get out of the locker room so you didn't have to hear it. And then you wanted to make sure you went out on the field and performed in a manner that you didn't hear, them striking the band up for making a big play. So I think it's kind of naturally there. It should be there. And again, with kind of the makeup of this team, these guys are natural competitors. They're leaders. A lot of them come from winning programs, and they just don't like to lose. And then there's still this, this a little bit of this narrative still that Texas is getting more attention than they deserve. You have that, faction of people out there that are still just looking for a reason to point at us and say that we failed at something. So I think these guys are going to be, self-motivated more than anything, but the revenge factor, plays into it. I just don't think Sark really has to be the one to strike that match too much.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for the question. That was a good one. How about this one from Derek? What's the over-under on holding calls against the Texas defense? Ooh, against the Texas defense. It depends on how aggressive the passing game is going to be. I think that's one thing for Ohio State. Are they taking shots down the field? Are they trying to get vertical on this Texas defense? If that's the case, then maybe they'll try to get them in some panic situations, when the ball's in the air, that kind of thing, where guys may get a little handsy. That's all I can kind of really think of. But I don't expect. I expect with that two high shell coverage. A lot of times, Will Howard only had 2 deep passes against Texas.
Mm-hmm.
He only attempted to, because usually that pre-snap look of 2 deep safeties will deter any quarterback from chunking it deep. They'll usually just they'll usually dismiss all their vertical shots and be like, all right, I know what I'm working with now. They got 2 deep safeties, so my short game is going to be there for me. So I think ultimately, if Texas shows that, they won't get in that situation where they have to panic on some of those deep vertical routes. That's the only thing I can think of that maybe you're talking about, Derek. But what are you guys' thoughts?
I don't see it as being a big deal. But Derek, you might be right. I mean, but I don't see this secondary being the type that's going to go in panic mode. But sometimes it's worth the penalty. If you've got a guy running wide open on a vertical right down the field, it's worth the penalty. So in that case, yeah, maybe so. Rod, have you ever done that?
Yep, I did it before, and I didn't get called on it either. But Coach Aquino would tell you that if you are beat, like it is, you are done, you are toasted. Mm-hmm. That ain't nothing wrong with just grabbing that guy and just slowing him down, and we'll take the penalty. Live the fight.
Yep.
Yeah, it's better than giving up that deep bomb for that touchdown and just a back-breaking play that hurts everybody on the defense. So nothing wrong with that. I would say that kid from Ohio State, Igbinosun, he's a good player, but he had 16 flags last year.
Yeah.
16? That's a lot. Sark needs to go at that young man.
That was 16 with that, very experienced defensive line in front of him, right? So talk about the pass rush. That was 16 with was it Lathan Ransom, back there next to Caleb Down. So I mean, that's now a position that you could potentially expose, like you're saying, Rod. And I think, Sark even said something about, I don't remember his exact phrasing and his availability the other day, but said something to the effect of he put these guys in some stressful situations or something in practice. The other day. So I would be willing to bet that, a component of that was, really forcing them to, kind of challenge how they're going about their hand placement and everything.
Yep, that's a good point. Because honestly, when I've seen some practice guys, I've said they should be the DBs, all right, they should be accustomed to defending the deep ball, because in practice, Arch is chunking it deep at a pretty high clip. Yeah. So that they should be working that technique on those deep balls down the field, those vertical shots, just because they see it a lot from Arch.
Well, plus, Rod, to your point, I expect us to have help over the top, and so that will eliminate some of that, holding penalties, because you've got a safety coming over the top possibly to help.
Yep. So you'll sit on some routes, undercut some of those routes too. I'll keep that, Coach. All right, let's thank another sponsor before we move on. We got some super chats waiting. Let's just thank our friends over at Bingham's Bourbon. That's right. Ryan Bingham, the star. Got a chance to interview him. Great dude, great guy, and great bourbon. So Bingham's Bourbon, created by Grammy and Oscar-winning artist Ryan Bingham. For years, Ryan turned down offers to just put his name on a bottle. He instead wanted a bourbon he could be proud of, and one that stayed true to his Texas roots and where the music comes from. That's why he built Bingham's from the ground up, a Texas-certified whiskey made with 100% Texas-grown grains, distilled and aged in the searing Texas climate for a bold, unmistakable flavor. From the hands of local Texas farmers to the barrel to the glass, every drop is a tribute to the land, the craft, and the people who shape it. Bingham's Bourbon, proof that Texas makes a damn good bourbon. Available now across Texas. Find details at binghamspirits.com. binghamspirits.com. That's binghamspirits.com. Thank you very
If
much.
you don't remember that cat, he was one of the stars on Yellowstone.
Yeah, he was. I told him he should do some more acting, man. He's pretty good on
really
Yellowstone.
Yeah.
He was good now.
Talented musician too.
He's a really talented cat, man. Really talented cat. So, and we appreciate. Apparently, we might get him on, to join us a little bit later on during the football season too, because he's a big college football fan. Who knew? All right, getting back to the super chats here. How about this one from Sugarcane Daddy, not the crop? He says, "Why have we had such a checkered past with reciting?" Herman recruiting. Oh, sorry about that. Recruiting says Herman Mackovic. Mac had his string of QB misses. Were there any other before them? That's a good question. I just know Mac got in trouble just because around the time that Mac had his issues recruiting quarterbacks, Texas became the state itself became the quarterback mecca. No state was producing more high-level college quarterbacks and more high-level NFL quarterbacks in the state of Texas. And the Shakespearean irony was that Mac couldn't find a good one at Texas, like one of those great ones at Texas. And I think so that was part of the issue that kind of led to Mac's downfall a little bit, because at first Mac was stockpiling that room with great quarterbacks. So I was here when they had Chris after Major, had Chris Sims in the same room, recruited obviously Pitch Young, Chance Mock was a 5-star coming in. He was stockpiling that room, and then
I can tell you, Colt McCoy was lightning in a bottle.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anybody expected that boy from 2A Tuscola High School, Jim Ned High School, in Tuscola, Texas, to have his jersey retired. Yeah. And then Garrett Gilbert was the number one recruit in the country, and very hyped. And I think he didn't produce when he was. I think he was a true freshman. I think, wasn't he, in 2010 when he had to come in against Alabama in the national championship game?
Yes, he was.
And he just never really hit his stride for Texas, and I don't think Mac had a backup plan after him, or it seems like there wasn't. That's kind of when we kind of hit a dry spell after that. And of course, Garrett went on and had a great career at SMU and NFL, got a Super Bowl ring and all that, but it just didn't happen. And that's where it ended after Colt, until really, I guess, we got Sam Ehlinger, and he was the first one to be consistent starter, for, I think, he started all 4 years, I guess, didn't he?
2017 he had some starts at the year.
Started at least 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember what year it was, but David Ash, having the medical issues he was having with the concussions and stuff, like he was performing at a pretty good clip and seemed to be on a good trajectory before that impacted him. So I think sometimes it's a tricky science to it. Sometimes it's going all in on one guy and if they don't pan out, they don't pan out. But the other, flip side of that is like Rob was saying, like the state was producing all these different guys, and it wasn't like every other college was nailing it every single time. It's just the flagship school, the expectations are a little different. So, well,
the problem is you missed on Baker Mayfield, you missed on Mahomes, and you missed on
RG3 was in that category too.
Yeah, there's several guys that Texas didn't go after that wound up being, all Americans and all pros or whatever.
Let Baker tell it. He was an OU guy in high school. So, some of them, I don't know if we were ever going to convert them.
But he went to Tech out of high school.
He went to Tech. He walked on to Tech. But nobody was really offering Baker.
You're right.
That was a lot of folks. Well, the Johnny Manziel thing and, Johnny. I think I still think to this day that Mac knew some stuff about Johnny's wild ways.
Yeah.
Mac was like, nah, we good. I think Mac had his old people like, dude, this dude is wild. He good, but he wild.
But I did hear this though back in that during that day that Garrett Gilbert came obviously from a very successful high school career at Lake Travis, and there was a lot of talk that he was a product of the system. He didn't have many reads in high school. He had a system that he knew very well, but it wasn't a pro-style system that prepared him for college. And so I think a lot of people were scared of, maybe Baker and people like that. Maybe they're a product of the system too, and I can tell you that back at that time, it's a little easier to recruit quarterbacks now because so many people are throwing the ball. But it's a difficult position to recruit, especially when you have a guy like Mahomes, who is so kind of a gunslinger. He didn't have great mechanics. I remember watching him in high school, and our coaching staff, they thought, well, he's just kind of a freelancer. He doesn't really set his feet. He just kind of, just a gunslinger out there, and he doesn't really fit, into a regimented college offense. But he sure fit in Mike Leach's offense.
It was really to that point, Coach. It really was kind of the air raid, right? NFL coaches were scared of air raid quarterbacks forever, and they always talk ish on air raid quarterbacks. When you're talking to Baker Mayfield, the Patrick Mahomes in that category, with Cliff Kingsbury, with Johnny Manziel, they never really wanted to believe that an air raid quarterback. They always thought, oh, those guys are all system guys. Their game wouldn't translate to the NFL. It turns out they were wrong. Now, they weren't totally wrong. Some of those guys did not translate, but for the most part, that skill set for air raid quarterbacks does translate to the NFL. Not the NFL is just more of a passing league. So I think that was kind of something that really kind of stunted the quarterback evaluation, because the NFL coaches were so stubborn about air raid quarterbacks forever. And then they finally decided, you know what? The air raid quarterbacks are the best quarterbacks available. Like, what are we doing? And then I think everything has kind of shifted from there. So, and then Texas screwed Garrett Gilbert over because we changed the offense. Don't forget that. While he was here, went from a spread offense to try to be a ground and pound. That didn't work out. Erica said, imagine being a private investigator for Mac Brown, tasked with gathering intel on Johnny Manziel. Imagine what they saw. I'm just saying that's my theory as to why Mac backed out of that one. Was like, I think Mac knew some stuff about that one. Anyway, getting back to the super chats here. How about Cisco? Cisco Diaz says, how much does Arch go under center Saturday? See, I think he's going to go under center a couple of times, and I don't know how much. Maybe 4 snaps is that a lot? I mean, maybe 4 to 5 snaps is something I feel under center, because every now and then Quinn would go into center. It'd be very special stuff. Usually it means Sark was up to no good. He's about to got a double reverse happening or a double pass. And when Quinn was under center, I don't know how defense got. But I'm like, dude, he's under center. He's never under center. He's doing something crazy. And it would always be a double reverse or something like that. But with Arch, I think it'll be for more traditional reasons, to get the play action pass going, maybe to get more of a downhill run game. So Cisco, right now, I'm going to say 4 to 5. What about you guys?
I would say no more than 10%.
Yeah. Not something that's going to be they're majoring in by any means.
No.
Nice change of pace, maybe.
Yep. Exactly.
Plus, the nice thing about the shotgun is it gets the quarterback back away from everything where he can see, and he has more time to read the defense instead of having his back to the defense, faking, on play action or something like that. You get him in the shotgun, he can see what's going on back there a lot better than he can. And plus, you got to worry about the stinking snap, because a lot of these guys were, they've been in the shotgun since they were in 7th grade. They don't even know how to take a snap.
They don't.
And offensive linemen, the same way. A lot of these guys have been taught to retreat ever since they were in 7th grade because they're playing in an aired out offense. They don't know how to come off the ball with a flat back. And so I always tried to recruit those guys, look for those guys that had the potential, had the feet to be good pass blockers, but also knew how to fire off the ball at the flat back and blow you off the line. And I feel like that there's times that we have recruited guys that just retreated every snap instead of being the aggressor every snap.
Good stuff, Coach. All right. Thank you, Cisco, for the super chat. Appreciate it. The Nick Turn with a super chat. He wants a Jonah Williams update. I haven't heard much about Jonah Williams in terms of him being a contributor for the defense. If he's healthy enough, I do think he can be someone that can make an impact early on special teams. I think because he had an injury in the offseason, they were working him in early. I'm working him in slowly. I think he's a little bit behind, especially for Ohio State game. So I don't know how much Jonah Williams I expect to see in the Ohio State game.
The only other thing I have on Jonah is he's a freak. That's all I know.
He is a freak now.
He is a freak of nature.
7 days a week. Yeah.
Like you said, Rod, I mean, he came in out of high school, trying to come back from an injury, from his last year at Galveston Ball, and then trying to get ready to play some baseball. So he didn't even get a true offseason up under him. So I think they're just going to kind of ease him in. There's no supreme urgency that you need him to play right now, right? So you'd rather him come back and not have any setbacks. So maybe a little later in the season you start seeing him worked in.
Yeah, that's how deep this team is. You got 5-star safety. Be like, they don't need anything from him. Yeah, just let them sit and develop. All right, Sugarcane Daddy, not the crop. Thank you for the super chat. Says Arch yells Omaha from Victory Formation. Book it. Hey, you might have been the one who suggested Sugarcane Daddy, not the crop, but they definitely should have an audible. That went as an Omaha audible in the offense versus maybe not versus Ohio State, but this season they should have one just as an homage to Peyton Manning. So got to do that, man. I would love to see that, Sugarcane Daddy. You're right about that, brother. Good stuff. All right, let's thank another sponsor before we move on. Our friends over at SeatGeek. We'll come back and answer a couple of more questions before we close things out. Texas fans, I'm excited, as you are, to see the Longhorns take on the Buckeyes this weekend, which is why I want to give our friends at SeatGeek a shout and give you this promo code on Texas 10 so you can get hooked up by our friends over at SeatGeek. With more than 35 million downloads, SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app. College football is back and the NFL is right around the corner. SeatGeek has your back. Each ticket is rated on a scale from 1 to 10, so you know you're getting a good deal. So look for the green dots. Green means good, red means bad. Plus, every ticket is backed by their buyer guarantee. Of course, we've got a deal for OTF fans. Use that code right there. You see it on your screen. On Texas 10 for 10% off your next set of tickets at SeatGeek. That's 10% off any tickets with the promo code on Texas 10. Make sure you click the link in the description to download the app and have the code automatically added to your account so you can use it later. Remember, use that code on Texas 10 with our friends over at SeatGeek. And thank you very much to our friends at SeatGeek for sponsoring the winning drive and being a part of the On Texas football family. All right, got some questions here. Some of these are really good. I like this. How about Hookem Hayden? Real quick, says true or false? Sark gets in his bag early and throws the deep ball at least once in the first series. I'm gonna say yes. Actually, I strangely enough did some research on Sark and his script, and I looked at deep shots. To your point, Hookem Hayden. And I looked at the last 3 big non-conference blockbuster matchups. So both of the Bama games and the Michigan game. In that 22 Bama game, you had your first deep shot was the first play. You had 3 of those deep shots in the first 3 drives. So the 5th play of the script, you had a deep shot, which was good. In 23 Bama, your first play of the 3rd drive was a deep shot. And you actually had a double pass on that same drive and a 44-yard reception by Xavier Worthy. Remember that big reception he had to get things kicked off? And then in 2024 at Michigan, 3rd play of the game was a double move to Isaiah Bunn. So very likely, yes, Hookem Hayden, you are right. There's usually a baked-in deep shot in Sark's script somewhere. That's usually a predetermined read. And I'm not sure who it's going to be. I would go double move on Igbinosun.
Yeah, I was going to say, you get the guy you were talking about earlier. Get the right matchup on him and just see if he's cleaned it up or not.
Yep, that seems like an easy one right there. So thank you for that. That was a good question. I like that. How about this one? Marco says, do we see any of Steven in this game, or is it all Sark? Usually in these games, we don't see Steven, and I don't want to see Steven. I'm a Sark guy. I love me some Sark. Usually Coach Steven shows up in that 3rd quarter somewhere. We don't need that coach, all right? We need Coach Sark. And using these big non-conference blockbuster games, I think this is probably the most creative Sark gets. Against Bama both times and against Michigan. I don't know about you guys, but I think this is maybe these scripts and these game plans are some of the most innovative that I've ever seen from Sark is in these big games. And I don't expect Ohio State to be any different at all.
No, I don't either. And the thing I like about Sark is I was always an aggressive play caller, and I like that. I don't think you're going to see him test, just like, going in with I see some high percentage stuff, but I don't see him, going in tapping the brakes, to start this game and just say, hey, I want to get my, my new starting quarterback kind of into a rhythm. I think Sark is who he is, and I think your research proves that. The only thing is, go back and look at Ewer's first year he was a starter, and see how that held true. Which I guess, what was it, 22? You went back to 22, Rod?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I don't see Sark backing off what Sark does. He's aggressive, he's innovative, and he's going to keep the Ohio State defense honest.
Yep.
I think it's a perfect marriage with his quarterback in the same vein, right? Like Arch likes to chunk it. He has a stronger, deep arm than Quinn did. So I could definitely see that being something that, they do early, just because it's, what Coach, I'm sure, used to go to your quarterbacks and you kind of ask them, what do you like? Well, I imagine for Arch, it's not the dink and dunk stuff. He knows it's necessary at different points in the game. But if you ask a big arm quarterback what they want to do, they want to push it down the field.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right, good stuff, guys. How about this one from Andrew says, Robbie, how do you prep your young wide receivers to fight through contact with a corner like Davis and Igbinosun without reinforcing bad technique on your own DBs in practice? Oh, that is good. Man, I would ask Coach, because Coach not only knows a lot about wide receivers, but he's a coach himself. Coach, how would you prep young wide receivers to play through contact, be physical at the catch point?
Well, I can tell you they've been working on that. I mean, it's not like they're going to go into the game not having fought through any contact, like they're going to see from Davison. But, it's just, it's stuff they work on every single day, and if you have a receiver who's having trouble getting off the ball or fighting through contact, then you just go to your next read. I don't know, Andrew, are you talking about on the line of scrimmage, or are you talking about
I think he's talking about like at the catch point.
At the catch point, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I like what I've seen from some of our receivers going up and winning that battle. We've talked about that a lot. They seem to have a couple of them anyway, seem to have not to have a problem with that. But we're going to see it. But if that's your primary target and he can't fight through the contact, you just go to your next read. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
And we used to,
every day in practice.
Yeah, we used to try to take a peek over there and check out y'all's one-on-ones, Rod. And, we talked about, too, how the DBs that they see every day, like, these cats are big, man. They're well put together. So, when they're doing these contested catches in practice, it's not like, they're going up against guys that, they can just easily overpower. Like, both sides are going to be competing for the ball. So I think it'll be something they're accustomed to some degree already, just from who they're seeing every single day in practice.
Yeah. Now, I'm with you on that. I think ultimately, and you talked about how the DBs, I think that's part of what makes, Texas so great right now, is that they're going to be sharpening each other's skill sets. I mean, you got good on good.
Yeah.
So you got bigger receivers now, Ryan Wingo, Parker Livingstone. I know Emmett Moses has been dealing with injury. But those bigger wide receivers for a DB like me, it forces me to have to be a little bit more buttoned up with my technique.
Mm-hmm.
Bigger receivers, I mean, that means they can get broad when they need to. They can box you out for a rebound. So you got to make sure you're playing through the hands, or am I trying to body him and playing through his eyes? Am I in good position to play through the man to the football? Or do I have to try to rake the hands? Do I have a chance to get my hands on the football? And all these are things that I think you think about in terms of positioning yourself as a DB when it's time to fight for the football at that catch point. The bigger that receiver is, the tougher. Like Jeremiah Smith, it's got to be a pain in the at the catch point, because he's just a monster. Like those guys, if the ball placement's right, man, they just box you out. And the big thing is guys who catch with their hands. Those guys are a problem. Guys who catch their bodies, man, I'll knock the ball on all the time, because the ball's got to get all the way into their body. I'm close to the body, so I can rake that out. I can punch it out. Guys who catch the ball out front with their hands, got strong hands, those guys are a problem at the catch point. They can box you out, big body you, big back you, and then catch the ball out in front of them.
Ryan Wingo
is one of them dudes. Yes, sir. All right, let's thank our last sponsor of the evening, our friends over at South Point Dodge. You can score an easy extra point this season when you get to the point with our friends over at South Point Dodge. South Point Dodge has over 600 vehicles in stock right now, including the all-new Ram 1500, proven to last, folks. And right now, it's a great time for you to get on over to our friends over at South Point Dodge. Check out all those great vehicles they have in stock. And also check out the employee incentive pricing. That's right. Right now at South Point Dodge, you pay what the employees pay. They call it employee incentive pricing, but it's their fancy way of saying you get the employee discount with our friends over at South Point Dodge. So score big today at South Point Dodge. Go see them in person off of I-35, or you can go online at southpointdodge.com. Whether you need a car, truck, trade in, something new, something used, our friends at South Point Dodge pride themselves on being Austin's automotive everything. So get to the point today with our friends over at South Point Dodge. How about this one? Jenny says, Marcus, are you sure this is your first show? You're killing it. Hey, he's a natural. Tell the guy's a natural.
Oh,
Natural.
I get to watch some. I get to watch some pretty good guys go before me. So I just, try to keep the ship running. I appreciate that, Mrs. Burke.
Nah, Bobby's got a great eye for talent, and Marcus is talented. I can tell you that right now. And he knows his stuff too. So we're very lucky to have Marcus as part of the team. We've been trying to upgrade and get better where we can, making some acquisitions via the portal. All right, trying to upgrade this roster to make it a championship caliber roster with the Longhorns making their championship run. OTF wants to do it too. So with that, Marcus, we are very grateful for you. So a great job today as always, Coach. Thank you for holding it down. Great knowledge, great expertise. Matthew, you're the real MVP. Sorry I was a little late. Thank you to Jeff Howe for holding it down while I had some chaos that I had to address here at the home. So I appreciate all of you guys and your patience. Also, tomorrow, don't forget, we got a live stream tomorrow. Actually, we got two of those. You got Coffee and Football bright and early tomorrow morning at 8:15 with Bobby Burton, who's already there in Columbus. All right, so Bobby's already man on the ground there in Columbus, and he'll be doing Coffee and Football with Jerry Hamilton. So if you missed any of your questions, please direct them to the gentleman at Coffee and Football. Thank you guys for all the super chats. If I missed any of your questions, I really, really apologize. Yes, my man Marcus always bringing the juice. We also have a 3 p.m. live stream tomorrow as well. That's our Friday live stream, and I guarantee it's going to be a damn good one, getting you ready for Texas versus Ohio State. But in the meantime, thanks to Matthew, thanks to Coach, thanks to Jeff Howe, thanks to Marcus, and for all of our sponsors. We really appreciate all of them. Von Lane, vonlane.com. Thank you to our friend Bingham's Bourbon as well. Thank them for being on the team now. Our friends over at South Point Dodge, we appreciate them. Hayes City Store, forgot about them, but they're also now on board. So we just got a great team here, and also thanks to our friends over at Seat Geek too, as being a part of the On Texas football family. For Jeff and for Marcus and for Coach and for Matthew, I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis. Until next time, hook 'em horns.
Welcome.